back to Morning Joe. It's 37 past the hour. Joining us now, Republican Governor John Kasich of Ohio. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Governor, what do you think of the health care debate that's going on in Washington right now, and another failed Republican attempt to reorder one-sixth of the economy in a week?
What do you think the vote's going to be? Do you think they'll call it up? I mean, I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
You don't?
At this point, they've got 3 no's.
You know, Joe, look, Hickenlooper from Colorado and he's a Democrat, and I put together a plan that would give states great flexibility within guardrails. It would give the Democrats the ability to keep Obamacare as it is. And it has, I don't know, 8, 9 governors that support it. You saw that Lamar Alexander and Patty Murray were having hearings. Just do it together. Stabilize the insurance market,
right,
and deal with Medicaid down the road.
But this is about the 3rd or 4th time, though, Republicans have drafted a bill behind closed doors and then tried to shove it down everybody's throat. Then it failed. And I mean, no CBO. Can you imagine? No CBO score, no hearings, no regular order. And these people are calling themselves conservatives and attacking people like you, saying you're not a conservative.
Well, I mean, I haven't paid much attention to the attacks on me, but
right. I'm just saying it's
look,
ironic.
The solution to health care is embedded in the marketplace. Right now, in the marketplace, you get paid for quantity. We should have health care where we're paid for quality. Everything else, most things in life, we get paid for quality. But in this business, the more tests you do, the more things you do, the more reward you get. It has to be changed. Now, look, the entitlements, Joe, you and I, well, we all know this. It's gonna eat up our economy if we're not careful. So you can do Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security separate and come up with reasonable plans. We took Medicaid in Ohio from a 9% growth to this year it's going to grow by 1.7%. There are more people that are covered. We reformed the system.
How'd you do it?
Well, first of all, if people want to stay in their own homes instead of being forced into a nursing home, which they had been in Ohio, we won that fight. So now they can stay in their own home where they're more comfortable, where they're happier, and where it costs less. You have to take things on. We forced the managed care companies to compete against one another. We just did things that made sense, that still preserve coverage, that was rational, that reduced the growth of that program. Isn't that amazing? From 9% to 1.7%, and a low uninsured rate in our state?
You're a Republican governor of Ohio. Governor Hickenlooper, as you just mentioned, Democrat governor of Colorado. In your case, in your party, who is the head of the National Republican Party in your mind?
In my mind, I don't kind of think of it that way any more than I think who's the head of the Democratic Party right now. I don't know. I feel that I have a right to define what it means to be a conservative and a Republican, and there are multiple people who can do that. Now, obviously, the president is always viewed as being the titular head, but that doesn't mean I have to go along with that philosophy. I run the 7th largest state in the country. I have a right to say what I think it means to be a Republican and a conservative, and I am a conservative. Think about it. People call me names. Our budget is balanced. We're $2 billion in the hole. We've grown 479,000 jobs. But at the same time, we're also helping people who live in the shadows to get out of the shadows and get opportunity. Why is that not conservative? Right, Joe?
That's conservative, Joe.
That's what I think it is.
Is your definition of being a conservative running governor of Ohio, what you've done, is it different than the national definition, Mitch McConnell, being conservative in the Senate?
I would say that well, look, I'm pro-trade, I'm pro-immigration, I want balanced budgets, I do want tax cuts, but I understand they'll provide some growth, but I also want them to be paid for. I think we need to deal with the debt. I think we need to have a muscular foreign policy, but not go everywhere. That
kind of sounds like the official position of the Wall Street Journal editorial page over the past 30 years.
Joe,
and what I say by that is that's been considered by conservatives to be the bedrock voice of conservatism.
What I'm more concerned about is what is a common sense solution where government can have a partnership, but I'd rather have government as a last resort rather than the first resort. But if government needs to step in and do something, I'm not against it if it can help solve a problem in a creative way. Yeah. I mean, I don't understand this. Oh, by the way, I also care about the environment. These are things that are really great. I like national parks. I mean, I have a right to chart my own course and to talk to people about the way that I feel. Health care. I want to fix health care. I just don't want to throw it out. I don't want to have a bill passed that's going to put 20 million people without health insurance. That's not the right thing to do. We need to be somebody that cares about people, but also remember, government is a last resort, not as a first resort.
Well, and you're describing a lot of conservative principles and solutions, but I think it cuts a little deeper than that these days when you see the footage from Capitol Hill and those protesters and how visceral the anger is just in so many different communities in this country. And you look at what the president has dedicated his time to, demeaning NFL players and, trying to start a culture war. What's the solution? What is the role of politicians in curbing some of this rancor and bringing people together?
Yeah. Well, look, Popovich, he's the coach of San Antonio. He apparently said yesterday something that I've been saying for a long time, and I think you would all agree with. You don't strengthen the country from the top down. You strengthen the country from the bottom up. And I think we have eroded some of the values that our mothers and fathers taught us. You know what they really are? Two basic things. Love God, respect God, worship God, which brings about humility. And secondly, love your neighbor as you want your neighbor to love you. We've forgotten a lot of that. And so it all starts with us. And I know this is a boring thing to say, but it does matter how I treat somebody at the water cooler. And why am I taking my cues from politicians, celebrities, athletes? Why don't I just get it right where I am, like they do in Boston? Boston strong, hanging together. It didn't come back because of the mayor. It came back because of the people in the neighborhoods over there at the north end.
But John,
Yes.
I'm just looking at the front page of any paper I pick up.
Yeah.
NFL lashes back after Trump's tweets. Our kids are growing up watching the president bully people all over the place and thinking this is the norm.
But my kids don't.
North Korea says it could down U.S. warplanes.
Yeah.
Is this president putting this country in danger? And
You know
it's a
what?
yes, no
I've said more about Donald Trump in the last 8 months.
Well,
I
it's
did,
kind of
but
important.
hold on.
He's the president of the United States.
I know, but you know what? I don't wake up every morning looking at a headline. What I do is, first of all, do I think we're on the edge of war with North Korea? I do not. Okay. Do I like what was said about the NFL? Of course I don't. But I don't live and breathe and hyperventilate on the basis of what comes out of Washington. Whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Chuck Schumer, that's not what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about, it's what's happening in my neighborhoods, in my state, what we're doing about the drug crisis, what we're doing about infant mortality, what we're doing about job creation, what I'm doing about workforce training. I'm not trying to avoid this. I'm just telling you, I'm sort of done with it.
It sounds to me like you're kind of avoiding. You ran for president.
Yeah.
So you do understand the power of the presidency, the importance of the job.
Absolutely.
The duty and the honor that it involves.
Sure. But okay, so we have what we have. Look, I've said all that there is to say. I didn't go to our convention. People still mad at me about it. I didn't do an endorsement. I've said all that. But I'm not fixated on it. When you're in the news business, you have to be. That's what gets eyeballs and everything else. Am I sitting around thinking?
No, this isn't about eyeballs. This is
We're really
about right
worried.
now.
Okay. I'm personally worried
This is actually about
our democracy.
This is not about eyeballs. This is actually about North Korea threatening to strike America with nuclear weapons, and the foreign minister saying it was the president's tweets, the president's insults that have pushed them there. So this is not about eyeballs. This is about my children.
But
I'm
wait a
concerned
minute.
about my kids.
No, I understand that, Joe. I don't happen to believe we're on the verge of nuclear war.
Why not?
Okay. Well, because I don't see the evidence for it.
Well, I mean,
here's what I do think.
Do you think that we're in a position that things are getting more dangerous?
I'd like to see them calm. I'd like to see them calm down. But here's what I think the play is really. At the end of the day, I said this months ago. You need to have a regime change in North Korea. The Chinese are interested in living with this situation. We're putting a lot of pressure on them. And when I say regime change, I'm not talking about going over there and taking somebody out physically, taking them out in assassination or anything like that. I'm talking about regime change. Get him and that top group out of that country. Say we're not going to invade the North. These are the things the Chinese worry about. So the back and forth, to some degree, if you talk to foreign policy experts, they will tell you that some of the president's rhetoric has been useful. Now, I don't want to see tit and tat back and forth, the water's roiling, but I don't sit here on the edge of my chair. I've got kids too. I love my country. If I thought with the intelligence community that they were ready to target us, we'd have to do something. I don't think that's where this is right now. That's my judgment. I'm also not president.
Right.
So am I concerned about it? Of course I am. Am I concerned about the Iran deal? Of course I am. But what I'm trying to say is I don't wake up every day and take the cues from my mood from what I see on the front page. I just don't operate that way.
Right.
I think we will get through this period. And what I'm most concerned about is, can I talk to people who think differently than me, show them restraint? And there's one big thing that I have learned, and over and over again: be patient with people. I'm not talking about the president. I'm talking about people that I work with. Be patient with people, because we're losing our patience. I mean, think about it. People go to football games, they're like yelling at each other in the stands. I mean, it's okay if you're playing Michigan and you're sitting at Ohio State.
Yeah, of
but,
course.
you know, we got to kind of calm this down. That's all. We got to calm it down and have a little respect. Look, isn't that why you and I get along? I listen to you, you listen to me. I don't always agree with you, you don't always agree with me, but we're fine. And we can argue, we can laugh. That's what we need to get back to and build our country from the bottom up.
So this is how you and I disagree, though, because I don't think we're fine. But I appreciate your insight.
I think we're fine.
Well,
I don't think we're fine.
I think we're going to be fine.
Wait, here's one other thing.
We're not fine.
The national character of our country has so corroded that this is going to be a tough.
But wait 1 second here. This thing we see, the division in this country, has been going on for more than a decade. I remember when they said that George Bush should be impeached. I remember when Republicans said Obama was a Muslim. I can remember back when we were in the Congress,
right,
and we saw how about the Judge Bork hearings and what went on in that? How about, you know, some of the things that were done to kick out some of the Democrat speakers? This is accelerating and accelerating.
How about
and we're
1968?
Yeah.
Look at that year.
Yep. I really do think that actually Donald Trump is the result of, you say 10 years, I say
that's longer
25.
than, yeah.
I think it's probably closer to 68 Ford.
By the way, people who haven't seen the movie Detroit need to go see it.
Okay.
I mean, have you seen it?
Yeah.
It is. I gotta tell you something. Maybe this will be offensive to some, I don't care. I watched this movie, I was with my 17-year-old daughter. I wanted to leave about 3/4 of the way through. It was so tough to watch.
Painful.
She said, I'm not leaving, Daddy, and you're not either. We finished the movie, we walk out of the theater. There were about 10 people in this theater. And there were 2 African-American guys walking out, 2 African-American women. And I turned to the 2 women, because it is a tale of brutality against the black community. It's brutal. And in fact, 2 young white girls that were there in that house, in the Algiers Motel. And the guys got by, looked at the women, and I said to them, that's just horrible, wasn't it? And they stoically looked at me, and they said, yeah, it really was horrible. I looked at them and I said, thank God that Jesus will give us justice. And the one black lady broke into tears, hugged me, hugged my daughter, hugged her friend, and we all walked out of the theater. That sense of justice, that things will be made right, that's what we strive for on earth. I'm not sure we'll ever get it here, but I think the day will come when we will get it. And if I didn't believe that, what could I believe in? But what a movie.
Governor John Kasich, thank you. We'll have to see that. Good to have you.
You know what? Thanks for letting me be here and talking. And God, I love to come on this show.
Oh, we love having you.
Okay.
We are back in just a moment.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.